started with our part 2 of this unit, and the key word we want to learn in this one is just the word formula. Okay, so last time, as I just was going over with you guys, the language we want to learn, 2 words. Phoenix, put away your phone. Phoenix, put away your phone. Is this algebra is just solving puzzles. That's what it essentially means. And the key word in algebra is the variable. That's the unknown thing that we don't know. The way we write it in math is we use a letter to represent a variable. Now, in the last time we had that fun, just general problem-solving discussion about 5 steps to solving a problem. Figuring out what we're doing, finding an appropriate method, using the method, getting a solution, and checking it. We're moving beyond that now. That was general problem-solving. So now, if we're going to actually start doing this mathematically, we need to start solving for the puzzle. Okay? So if a variable is a fundamental part of using algebra, and that algebra is solving puzzles, and the variable is the thing we don't know, what if all of a sudden we do know? What if all of a sudden, like say you were doing a puzzle on this table, and there was one piece missing, and then all of a sudden, oh look, here it is. Here's the piece. Boom, the problem is solved. So what if all of a sudden you knew what the variable was? That's what we're going to see right here. Okay? So hang on. Yes? No, you'll wait. Okay? So if we use letters to represent the unknown value, okay, here is some algebra. It's an unknown value plus 5. At this point, we can't do anything with this. We're like, can't do much. It's like a puzzle without the piece missing. We can't do anything. But then what if I told you what the piece was? What if I told you what x was? What if I said, hey, x is a 4? Oh, now you can do something with it. Now you can put a 4 there, and you can actually say, oh, it's 9. Thank you. We solved the puzzle. Okay. What happened was, as you may remember last time, we have an unknown, like a present before Christmas, and then all of a sudden I tell you what's in the present. Wouldn't that be awful? If you were getting a present and I just told you, oh, you're getting shoes. What? And now you open it, it's shoes, right? So that's the unknown, okay? But if I told you what's inside, then you can actually do something. Instead of the x, you write the 4, and then you get a solution. What you're going to hear math teachers use for wording often is the word substitution or replacing it. You're replacing the variable with its value. That's important. Now, I know this isn't the first time you've heard this, but it's important you grasp it as we move into more advanced stuff. All right. Now it just turns back into the arithmetic from the last unit. So here, it's 4. X is 4. Let's solve some of these puzzles. Solon, it's 4. What's the puzzle? 9. Yeah, you just said it. Okay? 10 minus 4.
9.
No. 10 minus 4 is 6. 9. Here's the puzzle. Oh, we know what x is. It's 4. 9. Here's the puzzle. We know what x is. 9. It's 4.
It's 9.
It's not.
It's 9.
Okay, shh. So it's a matter of solving the puzzles. Okay? And here come all the solutions.
I was right. It's 9.
It was. All right.
9. It's 9. I was right.
So that's where it gets a little bit easier, is if you know that solution. But what if we have more than one variable? Like this. X plus y minus z.
Why? 9.
So what you need to have here is you need to have all the missing pieces in order to solve this. So what if I told you x is 4, y is 5, and z is 1?
8.
Now you can start piecing together the solution by substituting the values. Okay, shh. Here's the steps. When you get algebra, step 1, rewrite it. Step 2, rewrite it again, but substitute in the value. So instead of x, I put 4. Instead of y, I put 5. Instead of z, I put 1, and then solve it. But things get tricky once multiplication is involved. Some of you, I saw this as you started doing your diagnostic, that you were tricked by this. Here's how it goes. Multiplication is where algebra starts to people start separating from how to understand it. And really there's only one reason for that, is because of the way you had been taught multiplication. You had been taught to use this symbol to represent multiplication, an x. However, I've now told you that once you start using algebra, you're going to use letters. And look at that. I made a little animation for you. The x for multiplication, let me show you again, and the x for a variable are very, very similar. And a matter of fact, if you write them with your pencil, they might look identical. So what if you wanted to write x times x? It might look something like this, which is super confusing. It looks like 3 x's. So we can't do that anymore. Here's the fact. Once you start once you start algebra, you no longer can use this symbol anymore to mean multiplication. You cannot. It is forbidden. It's a forbidden symbol. So there are a couple other choices. We could use a dot. That's not an x. That would work. We could use an asterisk, that thing. That's more like modern computers use that for multiplication. But you know what? I'm banning those 2 symbols as well. They're banned. You don't get to use them. You cannot use any symbol like this, an x, a dot, or an asterisk for multiplication. They are forbidden symbols. Well, you get 2 choices. And that's because, again, kids, you're going to find that your math teachers are going to do this. So you're not allowed to use those symbols once you start working with algebra or unknowns or puzzles. That's where multiplication gets trickier. So instead of using those symbols, I'm going to give you 2 ways you can write multiplication. The 2 choices are, 1, just write them beside one another. If you want to write x times y, just write them right beside one another, x, y. Or 2, use brackets. Brackets might even be an easier way for some of you to grasp that things are being multiplied together. These are the 2 ways you do multiplication, and yes, we're going to practice them. Okay, so now if I want to multiply x times y, I just do that. Or I do that. That means the same as x times y. You will not use the little x symbol anymore. You will not use a dot. You will not use an asterisk. That's the way I want to see you writing from now on, multiplication. When you are working with variables, okay? If you're working with variables, that's how you show multiplication. And that's where it gets hard. Okay, shh. All right. Here's some examples of this. X times y, that's what it means. 2 times x. So you write 2x. Now here is where I've seen some of you get confused. You see this 2x and you get confused to what it means. It means 2 times x, whatever x is. We don't know at this point. This means 2 times 3. Now, in this case, I don't need the brackets because I could still use the symbol. There's no variables there. But remember, that's what it means. This means 3 times x, then add 4. And then in this last one, which is probably the most sort of difficult to grasp, this means 5 times everything in that package. Remember, brackets creates a package. All right. So now that we got that, that was the hard part, the multiplication part. We can now start working with something called formulas. So let's take a look at the word. The word formula comes from the word form, okay? Algebra is solving puzzles. Variables are used when solving the puzzles to represent the unknown. If we know the value, we rewrite it, substitute the value. If it involves multiplication, we either write them beside each other or use brackets and then solve it. Those are your steps, okay? That's your method. The word formula comes from the Latin word, which means forma, which means to form or to shape or to mold. So when you create a formula, you are shaping a solution. That's what it literally means, okay? You are creating a solution for the unknown. You are solving the puzzle by forming. Just like we would form the puzzle, on the table, we are forming a solution. Okay? Now, here's the method. We just went over it. 3 steps, although in step 2 we might have to make some work for ourselves if it involves multiplication. If it doesn't involve multiplication, it's just 3 steps. Okay, so let's take a look. Here's the problem. X plus 5 when x equals 3. Now we're going to go through the steps. Step 1, rewrite it. X plus 5. Step 2, substitute the value. But does it involve multiplication? No, no multiplication, so I don't have to worry about these steps. And then solve it. So the important thing was the substitution. The 3 went in place of the x. Okay, it's substituted in. That was a pretty easy one. Let's do another easy one. 12 minus x when x is 10. Okay, rewrite the problem. Substitute in the value for the variable. 10 goes in for x. Does not involve multiplication, so we don't have to worry about this. And solve it. It's 2. Let's try another one. Okay, now we got 2 variables. X plus y, 3 variables, pardon me, minus z when x is 1, y is 5, and z is 3. Okay, step 1, rewrite it. There's the rewrite. Step 2, rewrite it again, but substitute in the values. We're subbing them in. No multiplication, so we can skip all that steps and solve it. This case, we'd use order of operations to solve it, and we get 3. Let's do another one. Now it gets a little trickier. 2x when x is 4. So 1, we rewrite the math problem. 2, we substitute in the value. But this one does use multiplication. So when we substitute it in, we're given 2 choices. Write them beside each other and write them with brackets. So now I get to here. It means 2 times 4. Very often students will give me the answer 6 here because they'll say 2 plus 4. No, it means multiplication. Do we solve it? It's 8, yes. All right, now this one. X over 4 when x is 12. Rewrite the problem. Substitute in the value. Now, this is a fraction, but we know from our last unit, no multiplication, so we don't have to worry about that. But in our last unit, we learned that fractions are division. That's what they mean. So this means 12 divided by 4, which is 3. We're done. So that's your 4 basic math functions in action in algebra. Remember the steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3. It works with 1 variable. It works with multiple variables. But now, as we get a little more advanced, you also need to remember some of your principles of BEDMOS. By the way, what does BEDMOS stand for? B is, E is, extra, don't worry about it. D is, M, multiplication. A is, and S, right. So let's put it to work. 4x minus 5 plus y when x is 4 and y is 2. Let's follow the steps. 1, rewrite it. 4x minus 5 plus y. Step 2, we're going to substitute. Now, in this one, we do have multiplication happening. We know that because these things with the variable are written beside each other. So we use brackets. 4 times 4 minus 5 plus 2. The y can get substituted in easily. And then we use BEDMOS. BEDMOS says, brackets first, 16. Then the order of operations gives us 13. Okay? It's important to follow the order. So I can't say that you're going to forget the stuff in the first unit. We got to bring it back. All right, let's wrap it up. Ready? Here's the summary for today. The language I want you to remember for this part is all about math multiplication. When working in algebra, when you're using variables, do not use those symbols, the dot, the asterisk, or the X to represent multiplication. You represent multiplication by writing it directly beside one another, or, and I actually recommend this one even more, putting it in brackets. That's how you do multiplication. And then when you know the value, if you're working on a formula, follow the 3 steps I just outlined to you. And although it's 3 steps, step 2 might involve a little more work if you're dealing with multiplication. And that's it. That's all I wanted you to get out of that. Now,